Hello everybody, Sparkster1701 here, and today we're going to take a look at a rather strange looking transformer. This is one of the small pretenders, one of the rarer ones to find. We're looking at the Generation 1 Autobot Surveillance Unit, Doubleheader. Now, Doubleheader was released in 1989. He would only be available in 1989. He would be discontinued by 1990, and we would not get a replacement for him. Doubleheader is one of the smaller Pretender units, so he was available on card, and is a bit more unique than the larger Pretenders that came before him. In the sense that not only does he have a rather unique alternate mode, he can also, the whole thing can be easily stored inside the shell. So the toy is pretty efficient on its storage. For the moment here, we're going to set the shell out of the way. And we're going to do a vast majority of our focus at the moment on the robot. You'll have a good view of the robot here. Rather interesting looking little chap. But let's take a look at his articulation. He does not have a lot, unfortunately. I mean, the little tiny arms can be brought up that far, or lowered that far down, so he doesn't really have a lot of motion for his arms. He does have a joint at the shoulder, but it's more to raise his arms up to transform him, so can't do much with those. And he does have a joint at the legs, so you can bend him at the knees. It is separate, as you can see, so you can do something of a running shot. He just doesn't stand up very well. Like that. But at any rate, that's what he is. Let's transform Doubleheader now. I'm going to start, of course, like usual. We'll remove his gun, and we'll set it aside. Turn him around to the back side, and you'll see a small lever here on his back. That controls his head being up and down. Of course, you may have to start it with a finger to get it going, and then just use the lever to get it all the way down. Then next, you'll make sure both of his arms are in the furthest down position. And then we'll fold his arms up onto the top of his head. Then next, you'll take the legs and fold them over like so, just exactly like that. And next, we'll retrieve this set of wings from the back of his shell. There's a large post here on the back side. You'll just connect it into this screw hole on the back of the toy. Just exactly like that. And of course, for added weaponry, you can attach the gun onto this post here at the back. And then there's Doubleheader's alternate mode, a twin cockpit jet. They're taking the two-head thing rather seriously here on this, folks, but it really doesn't look too bad. I mean, when you compare to how plain and dull and stupid a lot of the other large Pretenders' vehicle modes were, this isn't bad. It's strange, yes. Absurd, definitely. But I kind of like it. I've grown to like it over the years. And I haven't had this toy for a very long time, so the biggest thing you got to worry about is the fact this wing is all plastic, so the guns and such all tend to want to bend and get droopy and all that. As for handling, he swooshes pretty good. The only real downside is you got only the front landing gear. You don't have any at the rear, so no way you're really going to slide him across the surface very well, since he doesn't even have real wheels. But all in all, it's not that bad. Now that we know this guy is also a pretender, we need to show you how to get him into the shell. First of all, you put him back as the robot. First thing we're going to do is we got to get his head down, just like we did earlier. And then this time, you fold the legs up, like so. Now he's ready to go into the shell. Get the shell over here and pop it open here behind the camera. There we go. Take the rear portion of the shell, and you'll insert Doubleheader right in the middle. Just exactly like that. Now, as I had mentioned, there was additional storage. Take a good look here inside the right leg. You got a nice crossbar in there. Well, at the bottom of the crossbar, you just thread in the small gun, and it fits very nicely in this little cubby hole. All the small pretenders have this feature. They can store the small robot's gun inside the legs. Now with all of that in there, just take the top portion of the shell, line up the tabs at the feet, and just lay it on down on top. And snap it closed. And of course, now to fully decorate the shell, we got double helmet. Put on the heads. Right, hole there on the back just happens to fit the wings. Instructions show to put them in like this. Kind of like that. And then, of course, he has his own gun. And there you have it. Now, of course, the purpose of the double heads on him is for different purposes. As apparently the right head can see, smell, and make the analysis, the left one hears, talks, and makes decisions. Although the More Than Meets the Eye guidebook suggests that both heads are capable of speaking, and oftentimes he ends up having them either start a sentence and then the other head finishes it, a la Tomax and Zaymot from the G.I. Joe Real American Hero cartoon, or one head will be talking about one topic and the other one will talk about something completely different. Apparently this is done for maximum efficiency. I'd have to see it in action to believe it, folks. Because usually two heads does not necessarily mean two brains. But since it's one robot controlling it all, maybe it works. I don't know. A little hard to say. Articulation, however, is not improved on these small shells. It's the exact same as it is on the big ones. You can rotate the arms. Of course, in his case, the wings here get in the way. But as you can see, the arms fully rotate at the shoulder. That's the articulation you get. But, at least if nothing else, you can aim the gun properly. Moving right along, let's take a look at Doubleheader's loose pieces. We'll start with the Pretender shell. This is the front side of the front half of the shell. Not much to look at, except for the two heads. If there's going to be any paint wear, it's going to be here with the two heads. These actually look in pretty decent shape. Same stock bozo-looking performance. When you stare into their eyes, what do you see? No brains. Okay, get it moving right along. Here's the backside of the shell. Again, kind of like on the big ones, not much to look at. And of course you have the double helmet. It is made as one single solid piece, so you don't have to worry about it coming apart or anything, because it is pretty tough, but it is made of a rubbery material, so do be careful with it. And we got what the instructions refer to as the wings/backpack, otherwise known amongst the fandom as the big red piece. That's where all the detail is. The back side of it doesn't have anything except for the connection post. Of course, the thing you're going to want to watch out for are these engine intakes and the two guns on it. As you can see, they are on thin plastic, so they will break if they are stress-worn. They shouldn't be, but you never know. And we get down to probably what's the hardest piece to find is the robot's gun. Instructions refer to this as a rust ray gun. As you can see, it's very, very tiny. Here, let's put it in my fingers. You can see it's a very small gun. It mounts onto his hand with these two bars, so his hand goes between it. As you can imagine, this is a pretty difficult piece to find. It probably went in a lot of vacuum cleaners, or got stepped on by a lot of angry parents. And then, of course, lastly, you have the Shell's gun, which the instructions label as an acid pellet pistol. It leaves me to wonder if somebody at Hasbro switched the guns around on Doubleheader, because this is a rifle, not a pistol. But whatever, it's whatever you want to make of it. There's the other side of it. It's made of a soft plastic, unlike a lot of the earlier guns, so it will bend and give a little. You don't have to worry about breakage as much. Alright, moving along, we're going to take a look at his card backer, but I have two of them to show you. Get the guys out of the way here for a moment. Right here is the American card backer. Get that up there a little bit so you can have a look at it. But I also have this card backer. That's Scandinavian. Which I'd like to thank eBay for giving me that opportunity to get it. Well, let's turn them around to the front side. And as you can really see, there wasn't much difference between them other than how they were hung on the shelf. Of course, some of you will notice that the Scandinavian one is bigger. That's only because it's in a dual language. Believe it or not, you want to know which one I've had the longest of the two? That one, the Scandinavian one. The card backers for these small pretenders are very, very difficult to obtain. But of course, I wanted an English one so that everybody would, so the vast majority of my audience would understand it as we looked at it. That way you also know I'm not making this stuff up. You can see it starts off with a picture of the Pretender shell in action. I like that there. Doubleheader. Two-headed figure. Seriously? You see all the stuff. How to mount the gun. And then how to transform him to an airplane. And then how to hide him in the shell. And then all the other small pretenders in the line. There's something you may have noticed here. No stickers. These guys did not include any stickers whatsoever. So it's something you'll have to remember. It's part of Hasbro's cheapness from then. And going down here, we've got barcode, and he was worth 1 robot point. Bring it over here and take a look at his tech spec. It's done up in the new style that they were doing in 1989. It's got a picture of all 3 modes that he had. It's the same picture that was on the front of the package. It's done in red at the top to say that he's an Autobot. It even says he's an Autobot. It gives his name as Doubleheader, and his function is surveillance. His motto is, "Burn, baby, burn." Anybody remember Danny DeVito saying that in Batman Returns? Double trouble for the Decepticons. All functions and personality traits are divided between his 2 heads. The right head sees, smells, and analyzes. The left hears, talks, and makes decisions. Cool under pressure. Jet boosters in feet provide lightning-fast maneuverability in the air. Coil springs in legs also provides incredible jumping ability. Armed with semi-automatic acid pellet pistol. Inner robot armed with rust ray gun that corrodes metal on impact. Rather strange biography, but it almost sounds like the way his legs are designed, he's almost got a pogo action like Springer. Anyway, moving over here to the grid. This is the new grid that they did in 1989. It lists his strength as 5, his intelligence is 9, his speed is 7, his endurance is 5, his rank is 6, his courage is 8, his firepower is 6, and his skill is 9. So he's a pretty smart and skillful robot. Little on the weak side, but nobody's perfect. These guys back in frame here. Now comes down to my thoughts. What do I think of Doubleheader? Doubleheader is an interesting character in the lore. The shell itself is certainly strange. That we all have to give it. It is a strange looking shell, but it seems to function pretty well. The lore even describes it as such, that it does function rather well for his intended purposes. I guess if he's looking over something with the 2 heads, the one can be watching it, and the other one can be paying attention for other things, or relay what they're seeing back to base without having to be interrupted. The only downside comes to it is when in battle, if for some reason one of the heads gets blown off, it will severely limit his functions and thus force Doubleheader out of the shell. So the shell on him, while it's his greatest strength, it's also his greatest weakness. Because if his heads get damaged, then he's forced out of it in order to be able to truly function well. And I'm guessing a lot of the pretenders would prefer, if they are comfortable with their shells, they'd probably prefer to stay in them as long as possible until the mission requires them to use the special skills that their robot or vehicle modes have. Doubleheader, like all the small pretenders, is about a middle tier character. They're certainly not worthy yet of being in the top tier, but Doubleheader does come kinda close. The robot mode, yeah, it's a little weak. I'll give it that much. The airplane mode, it's unique. I mean, the only other two cockpit jet we had was the Decepticon Target Master Slug Slinger. So having a small one on the Autobot side is kind of nice. Unrealistic, yes, but it's still kind of nice. You just give it credit where credit's due. The shell itself, it's okay. I mean, there are certainly worse ones out there. This one, the absurdity of it, they at least make it work. So it does get points for that. And like I've long said, I'm a big fan of the storage feature for all the pieces on this toy. Whoever designed the Small Pretenders did themselves a good job by making it so that the gun can be stored inside the leg as well, so you have no real problems storing this toy. He doesn't take up any extra space when he's all in the shell, and you don't have to worry about loose weapons, especially those small guns that everybody always seems to lose. So, Doubleheader is definitely a middle-tier character, folks, and I strongly encourage any of you, if you're looking for a small pretender, this one is one of them to definitely get. And that concludes my review of the Generation 1 Autobot Surveillance Unit Doubleheader. If you like the video, please leave a thumbs up here on YouTube. Don't forget as well, hit the subscribe button down below and join up in the ranks. Please also consider leaving your thoughts for this video or of Doubleheader himself in the comments section down below. This is Sparkster1701 saying I will catch you all later.